Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with Honorable Mark Vanterpool, Minister of Communication and Works. I want to welcome you, my brother.
Thank you, Cromwell.
It's good to see you.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, you're not a stranger to Spotlight. You always like to get the spotlight shine on you.
Yeah, it's a little bright sometimes, but it's all right.
I got 2 spotlights on you today. I just want to alert you to the fact
Okay.
that there's 2 spotlights, one right there, one
Yeah,
right there.
I noticed.
Yes, you noticed. Tatola Pier partners, they came, they made a proposal, we had a consultation. We were looking forward to having the cruise ship pier expanded and the landside development, Main Street fixed up, some beaches fixed up, some historic sites fixed up. We had a big plan. We had to go after the tendering process. We had a little controversy with Royal Caribbean and so on. And then ultimately we went with Tortola Pier Partners. And now a couple of days ago, they decided you ain't going with them again. What happened? I know you say East End. What happened? What the story is?
Well, in a nutshell, Cromwell, as the Premier stated last week in his statement, we were proposed to by Tortola Pier Park as to what they can do and what they will do to improve our cruise pier and the surroundings, as well as you quite rightly said, in over a period of time, help with our city upgrade and some historical sites and so on. We obviously, once we selected them at what they proposed, proceeded to negotiate with them to ensure that what they proposed they would be able to deliver and ensure that we were getting the right value for what we were offering. And recently we came to the point after the deadline that we had given them, which was 90 days after we signed the agreement to negotiate, that the conditions that we had set out, some of them were not met. We gave them another 30 days to see if they could come forward with them. And after those 30 days, on September 19th, our negotiators advised us that they were not comfortable, the conditions were all met, and therefore advised the Premier. And the Premier met with the Cabinet, and the Cabinet made a decision to discontinue those negotiations. And because the cruise pier development is crucial to us, we decided at the same time to invite the Ports Authority to begin to undertake the same development, and therefore that's where we started.
What were the conditions that they couldn't meet?
There were about 7 conditions, as you know, Cromwell, or you may know. I told somebody, I think it's today or yesterday, that in negotiations like those, it's very difficult. While we may want to say exactly what may have happened, there are what you may call liable issues that we may be faced with. Therefore, we can't be too specific for saying the wrong thing that we may be held liable for. Therefore, the understanding and agreement was that we would make it clear that some of the conditions were not met very clearly, and both sides understood that and decided to end the negotiations.
Well, they couldn't get money, they couldn't get funding, they didn't get the engineers together, the plans that they were supposed to draw up for us to see. I mean, what can you say that you won't get sued for?
That's what I don't know, so I'm not going to say. I am going to say what I know is the truth, that the conditions weren't met to our satisfaction.
And you couldn't expand it. You know, the last relationship we had, or negotiations we had with a water company, it's 3 years now, and some of the conditions still haven't been met. But nonetheless, we still try to see how we could get them to fulfill their conditions. I mean, you get a drop of water yet.
Well, we signed an agreement which we're trying to fulfill.
So you couldn't. I mean, we expanded the time for that agreement. Why we couldn't expand the time for this agreement?
Well, I don't know what the exact conditions were then and what was happening, but in regards to this agreement, expanding the time was putting us into a very compromising position with the promise that we made to the cruise line companies to have the pay extended within a certain time to be able to handle the bigger ships that they already have slated to arrive here. These cruise ships sort of put out their plans and the schedules 16 to 18 months ahead of time. And based on the promise that we have made them, they are expecting to have that cruise pair ready for their bigger ships by the cruise season 2014. Therefore, we felt by continuing negotiations and extending more time without any certainty could compromise ourselves in terms of delivering what we promised the cruise ship community.
Now, Tortola Pier Partners had a deal with Norwegian Airline and Disney
Norwegian
Cruise Line and Disney Cruise Line to bring, I think, almost 500,000 passengers.
425,000.
425,000 passengers a year into the territory. Do we still have that deal?
The Port Authority has already begun to negotiate to maintain a similar deal, and from what I know, the cruise lines are very keen to maintain that. They're very keen to continue along those lines, and they're very keen to work with the Port Authority on carrying that same guarantee out. But it's in the middle of discussions along those lines.
Okay, so it's likely that we may still be able to make that have that
yes,
partnership.
Yes, the cruise lines are very desirable of continuing a similar partnership. Very desirable.
Okay. Now, you got to build a dock fast, at least a dock fast. Who are you going to get? The designs, the plans, are you going to have to do those over? Who got the contractors going to be? You got to get new contractors, got to go out for tendering again. How is that whole process going to work when starting over, going forward?
A very good question, Cromwell, because what we had done a couple of months ago, while we were negotiating, considering the timeline, we permitted the Tortola Pier Park group to go out and do the engineering, the architectural work, and all of the research that was to be done. The Port Authority had undertaken an EIA study and so on. And those works that we authorized them to go ahead and carry out, we agreed on the value that they should be, the Port Authority and the Tortola Pier Park Group. The value is, you may recall, a number that was in the press of $1.7 million for a list of works that we have agreed to. And the agreement was that if the negotiations would have broken off, as they have, that the Port Authority will become the owners of those works. And once those works are presented and verified, the Port Authority will pay for them. So most of the works are ready, and there's discussion and negotiations already to receive that information to be able to move forward quickly.
So the plans are not going to change that radically,
no,
so that we don't have to get all new beginning.
No. All along, the Port Authority was working with this group to ensure that the plans that they were developing were to our specifications, were to the ship specifications. In fact, we had an engineer hired on our side who was working with their engineers to ensure that they were the right set of plans that could satisfy the needs and the specifications that the cruise liners required. And so our engineer had already agreed with them, a very professional, internationally accepted engineer by the cruise line companies who worked on our side to verify that they were doing the correct engineering. So those plans and information are available, and we would have access to them to be able to execute the project very quickly.
Okay. Now, we were giving Norwegian and Disney some preferential treatment. Does this allow us now to expand our partnership with other cruise lines, say Royal Caribbean and Carnival and others, to increase the number of passengers along with the deal that we're trying to make with the partners they had in the past?
We always, even with the deals we're making with Norwegian Cruise Lines and Disney, we're making room for all of the cruise line companies, especially those companies who have been very good to us over the many years, including Royal Caribbean and Carnival. We've had several meetings with them. Up to 2 weeks ago, before this deal fell through, I was in Miami meeting with Carnival. One of my The managing director was meeting with Royal Caribbean government relations person was here to meet with me the week before. We had lunch and discussed a lot of matters concerning what they do here, and we have a very good relationship, and we want to make sure that room is made for them to come to the BVI and continue to serve the BVI in the cruise line business. So we establish a relationship where we will make room to ensure that those cruise lines continue to come, and that's what we will be doing in this case.
How you left off your relationship with Tortola Pier Partners? Are they going to play a role in this in the project still?
Tortola Pier Partners as a group will not play a role. However, we believe that it will be useful for us to consult or have particular areas that we think they were expert in to consult to us. So there are discussions about that. We haven't made any agreements up to this point, but we have ended a good relationship. They agreed that they didn't meet the conditions precedent, and therefore, they amicably agreed to move on. But we will be looking at some of the expertise that they have within their group, and may hire them on an individual basis to consult to the Port Authority on what services they can provide. So there are some discussions already started along those lines, and we hope that they can come to fruition.
One of the challenges was that we didn't have any money, and in my words, we was taking on a mortgage. I looked at it as a mortgage. You go to the bank, you put up some collateral, you get a loan, you pay back over 30 years. Of course, if the house costs you $150,000 after 30 years, you pay $400,000 for the house. That's a standard procedure. And so that seemed to be the way we were going based on our financial situation at the time and our need to expand our ports and our cruise industry. How is it going to be funded? What's different now? How are we able to get money now?
Cromwell, in early 2012, when we took a look at what the cruise pier development was, what was needed to make it viable and to be expanded as the cruise lines required. I had a meeting in Miami with the cruise line companies. They outlined exactly what they were looking for us to stay in the cruise line business. And we, at the time, we felt that we weren't in a position to do the development financially. There were a lot of questions at the time with our relationship with the United Kingdom. There was a loan hanging in the air, as you remember, Caribbean Development Bank loan that wasn't approved by the UK in terms of what's going forward. And so a lot of questions were there. This government, under the leadership of the Premier Minister of Finance, set about to improve that relationship with the UK government, to improve the atmosphere in terms of borrowing and so on. We went ahead and agreed with the UK government that we will put aside a certain amount each year until we can come technically compliant with what they want to see us have in reserves. And based on that, the UK government suggested, okay, if you're going to follow that line, we will allow you to borrow up to a certain amount. Even though you don't have the full reserves yet, if you continue on a yearly basis to put aside that amount, we will be willing to go along and approve what you want to do for your developments. So the atmosphere have changed between then and now. We have, through the Port Authority, have been in negotiations in the last week or so, last couple of days with banks to see whether we can raise the funding to do this project. And we have got some positive responses, nothing formal yet, but we are continuing to pursue that through the Port Authority. And hopefully we'll be able to raise the funding to get the project moving fairly quickly.
How much funding are we talking about?
I don't have exact numbers yet. We have a team assessing what the cost of the project should be from our end. We had a cost figure from the last group of $62 million project. We don't believe it has to be that high. There's certain aspects that we may be able to leave out. But we have a team assessing what the project size is going to be. And once the team in the next week or two gives us a firm figure that we think we can work with, we will be discussing with the banks. But we have to give the bank the indication that we want to build it. The pier side, which is what we are very keen on moving along, we have given the bank a figure in the region of $25 million for that. And then the land side development we'll be looking at. And then later on, we will see how we can discuss and review how the landside development can be funded. And we have some ideas, but we will be putting it out to the public as how we think we can deal with that in terms of getting the public involved in the landside development especially.
What are our plans to collateralize that $25 million with the bank?
The banks are very keen on the agreements we will make with the cruise lines. That's their main interest in terms of collateralizing it. They want to make sure that we have that guarantee that they can rely on that revenue.
Okay, so it's not so much giving up land or giving land as collateral. Will we have to give the bank land as collateral, one? Or is it more that they're satisfied with the 425,000 tourists guaranteed to come on an annual basis?
I can't say about the land issue yet because the bank, I'm sure, will be putting out their requirements, what they might need. I don't know what those are yet. But certainly the discussions that we've had with them so far as I know it, they are very keen on ensuring that we have some guarantee from the cruise lines that they can rely on that revenue to repay the loan. So that's as far as we've gotten. The landside development and what the banks will require from that yet, we don't know, and we haven't really discussed that in full as yet.
Are we still planning the landside development? Are we going to scale back that development? Are we going to go forward with the development as it was planned with the
cruise lines are wishing and requiring that we continue with landside development in a similar way that we had discussed before.
Are they giving us any assistance? Are they coming into any partnership agreement as far as the landside development is concerned?
At this point, we don't have any agreements along those lines, or we're not discussing anything along those lines.
What about contingent liability with the Port Authority? You seem to suggest that because it's a Port Authority, because it's a statutory body, it has certain legal parameters that it could engage in to get this loan. But we know that the government is ultimately responsible for whatever debt the statutory bodies incur. How is that going to play out with the UK regarding the contingent liability that's going to pose on the government, particularly regarding the borrowing guidelines?
I don't know exactly what we worked out yet. I know that there are two things. One, from the point of view of the government guaranteeing the Port Authority loan, that may not be necessary, but the banks will, whether they require it or not, it will left to be seen. The other side of it is that whatever the Port Authority borrows, in relationship to the central government's what you call ceiling, in terms of what the UK have authorized us through our protocols for financial management, 20% of whatever they borrow will be held against that ceiling. So if, let's say, the ceiling is that we have is 240 million, and the government presently have 110 million borrowed. The other 130 million will be reduced by 10 million, let's say, or 5 million or 2 million, depends on what the port is borrowing. 20% of whatever the borrowing, it will be held against that.
Okay. Now, everybody in the community now who have been wishing for this situation to develop, where BVI Land, the Virgin Islanders, can have a greater participation in this project, is looking for the government to make some kind of facility where I could take my $2 out from under the mattress, from in my pillow, and bring it and plunk it down on your table and say, brother, help build the port with this, the pair with this, and pay me back in 10 years and give me $4 back, pay me $2.
Yeah, well, I hope it's more than two, Mel, but yes, we are hoping to develop and establish as a vehicle. Exactly what that form that will take, we don't know yet, but the Port Authority is going to go ahead and do the project, and we're hoping that within a year or so, within the year that they're doing the project, we can begin to discuss and develop that vehicle with the public and get the public involved in the development.
Why we not discussing and trying to develop the facility initially?
Develop the facility, or you mean the
facility, the way in which we can invest?
We're going to be discussing that very, very shortly, but the need to get moving right away can't wait for us to make that discussion, with that discussion to be had. But we will begin to discuss it because we're very keen on local involvement. We've always been, we had We had asked for 20% of whatever the project development was to be for locals. If it could be 50, if it could be 100, if it could be 80, I think we'd be much happier if the BVI public could own the entire project, if that was possible. And who knows, it may be at the end of the day. It doesn't mean it can't be, but we think we want to move and then begin to develop that vehicle to have the public involved.
Well, certainly we are thinking right now that we are going to own that whole project. I'm going to take a word from our sponsor. When I come back, I'm going to ask you about what that means in terms of our ownership.
Sure.
And how that's going to benefit local store owners and what impact it'll have on the community right after these words from our sponsors. Keep it locked right here, the Spotlight. We'll be right back.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I have the Honorable Mark Vanterpool with me this evening, Minister of Communication and Works, and I have two spotlights on him. You can see his head is a little shiny, sweating. just a little fun. The phone lines are going to be open. You're going to get an opportunity to question the minister as well. We are going till at least 10 o'clock this evening. So, you know, the phone number's up on the screen. There you go. You can call. If you don't want us to hear your voice, you can text, and the minister will be happy to answer all the questions that I might forget to ask you. So that was your time to get a chance to question the minister. We left off talking, of course, about the development, the landside development, the funding, and so on. And you mentioned the protocols for financial management and the UK involvement, and a lot of people are interested in that aspect of it, and still concerned about the relationship with the UK and how you're going to get past them. It's like they are this the gorilla with the big stick, and you little fellows down here trying to weasel your way or through them and do what you want to do, and basically misbehave, and they got to keep you in line. That's the image, I think. Yeah. It's a community image that we are a little colony, and the UK is suffocating us.
No, not at all, Cromwell. In fact, I try to explain to as many persons as I can the experience I have working with the government and working in the cabinet, that the United Kingdom, we have a relationship. And from what I've seen, it's a very good relationship. Our Premier works very closely with the governor, and in fact very directly sometimes with London, through the FCO, whether it's the minister responsible for overseas territories or his advisors. And in fact, many times they give us very good advice. We call them and consult them for advice on certain things, whether it's economic advice. They have good economic advisors in FCO. When we're putting together agreements and deals like these, they're very useful to us, because they've gone through them before and they've either failed or have made them successful. So we have a very good relationship. The governor here, in his role, to represent and be the conduit for us through the FCO, does his job. If he doesn't think something is comfortable, or as you may say, kosher, his job is to advise and let us know and let them know. And we work very closely on that. Of course, in anything you'll have disagreements, but it's not like that at all. We have a very open and mature relationship with the United Kingdom government. In this process that we do, naturally, they are the ones who are like our backstop, that, as we would say, since we have the kind of relationship that we have where they have some responsibility for us as a territory. So we have to, at all times, at least get their advice, let them know what we are doing, get their sign off. Even if you go the route we are going now with the Port Authority, we have to get the UK sign off on it and have them comfortable with what we are doing. So we have to present our case, let them be comfortable, and get the agreement that we can go forward in this manner. So we're preparing for that and want to work with them closely. But they're not a big bad dog with a big stick up there, as we may think. They work very closely with us, and many times very good advice comes through them. So we want to we want to say that that's clear.
How
in that sense.
How confident are you that they will support this new move that the government is making?
I'm relatively confident that they will. I think the business deal that we're putting forward in terms of how it's going to be structured, with the cruise lines involved in the guarantee is going to I think give them some level of comfort, and I think they will realize that what we are doing will, in the way we are doing it, will benefit the people of the Virgin Islands even more. We don't have to share our revenue anymore. And hopefully they will agree to that, and the revenue that we will achieve from this project will accrue, ultimately all of it, to the people of the Virgin Islands, and I think they will be willing to support that.
Now, there's one thing I personally like to have made clear to me, because when we talk about the $1.7 million that the government was going to spend for the plans and so on, it sounded like it could mean that as part of getting out of the deal, we had a penalty to pay. We had to pay for things that were done already. Yeah. And so the $1.7 million is actually paying to get out of the deal.
No, not at all. Very clearly, it's very simple. And you know negotiations and how business works. It was very clear to all of us. You've made some agreements, a heads of terms, and the agreement said that at a certain time, 90 days later, if Tortola Pier Park Group did not meet the conditions precedent, the government could have just said, thank you very much, goodbye, gentlemen. The government said, okay, after those 90 days, we give you another 30 days. After those 30 days, we weren't ready. We said, thank you very much, goodbye, gentlemen. No strings attached, no conditions. They weren't met, and we just walked away. Now, we made provisions that in the event that this happened, that the time that we spent, we asked to be spent on engineering drawings and architectural drawings and planning and so on, that time won't be lost. That was an agreement we made. That time won't be lost if the negotiations break down. But whatever drawings or whatever work was done, and we had a list of them, and we agreed prices for each one, that came to $1.7 million. And once they can produce to us each of those items, with the value that we have for those, we will pay for it. So it's not a penalty or anything like that. In fact, it's what we wanted, and we are glad that we made that agreement early before.
So buying these things from them, these works that have already been done, will save you the time, save the government the time in having to do them over again.
Yeah, because we would have to pay for that. We would have to go and hire people to do them anyway.
Okay.
And perhaps even a higher cost, who knows. But the main thing was that we'd have lost a lot of time to get them done.
And since you're not changing the plans to such an extent, these still can work.
We just adapt them.
You just
adapt them to the project.
Well, that's a little.
So there's no penalty for walking away.
That's a little clearer. Now, we were talking about the local involvement, and the challenge, of course, is you're rushing again. You know, you're always rushing. People say you're rushing, you're rushing, you're rushing. And the bottom line is that we are now going to own the
entire project
and the landside development.
Yes.
There was a provision made for 25%. 20%. No. I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
No, not 25%. I think 25 spaces in the development.
Correct.
For local businesses
Yes.
to have in the landside development.
Yes.
That situation will change, obviously.
We can do whatever we want now in terms of how we present that. It's the Port Authority's project.
So we're looking at having multinationals, large multinationals come in, or I mean, what have the thoughts been on
there will
how
be
that's
some.
going to be structured
If I
now?
tell you there won't be some multinationals in there, I wouldn't be telling the truth. I'm sure the cruise lines and all the persons who support the project want to see some of the Diamonds International, Dufry, or whatever they are, all those companies that do jewelry and that kind of thing in there. They're requiring that they be there. But how many will be there versus how many locals we can put in there, that's something that we can determine.
Okay. And I had to say, I had the occasion to be in St. Thomas about a month or so ago. and a cruise ship was in the harbor, and I remember the days when St. Thomas, the cruise ship, when cruise ships come in, you couldn't get a taxi, you couldn't walk on Main Street.
True.
It was just a real traffic pandemonium, right? But this particular time, I noticed that, and there's a bookstore and a health store in Havenside that I usually go to. And I happened to be in Havenside and noticed that all the tourists were in Havenside. And when I went down Main Street, the managers were hanging out the door, gawking, trying to get you to come in the store. The Main Street the traffic was like a pedestrian mile on Main Street in St. Thomas, which was unheard of. And I was sad, actually.
Yeah.
I was sad because in my mind, like I said to myself, Lord, I hope this don't happen in Tortola, because these are things that I've seen in quite a few places. What are we going to do to make sure that type of situation don't develop here?
It's a concern, Cromwell, and I think what we have been looking at, in fact, we're expecting that approximately 8,000 passengers on any particular day can come off the ships. How we disperse them?
8,000?
Well, 4,000 each ship. And if two ships are in a day,
the bigger ships, yes.
you're talking about 8,000 passengers, and then you have another 2,000 or 3,000 crew. And half of them normally get off and want to get a break and get off the ship. So we will want to find ways, and there are ways that you can use to disperse them all over the territory, not just in one area. So you would design it in a way that you can have people going on tours that will be either pre-booked or booked there. You can have them shopping in the park itself, or you can have your promotions to promote these tourists to go down to historical sites, Craft Alive, walk them over to the main street and have them do main street walks, main street tours, museum tours, and so on, so that they can be dispersed throughout the city, as well as those who may go on tours to visit historical sites and so on. So when you have that number of persons, I think you can share it around. Obviously, we'll want to encourage them to take some of the ferry boats over to our sister islands and make connections there and so on, so that we can spread it around. So it is going to be an organized way of moving people around, but it has worked before, and I believe we can make it work.
So this is a definite, deliberate plan that the ministry is looking at to disperse the passengers and not have all. I mean, obviously 8,000 won't be able to stay on the dock.
Yeah.
But to have them
and all don't normally come out of the ship either. To be fair.
Yeah, right.
So the all 8,000 may not get off, but you want to encourage as many to come off as possible.
But you definitely had deliberate plans that you're going to use to disperse them throughout the territory, not just on Tortola, but Virgin Gorda, Jasper Dyke, and other islands as well.
Yes.
That could manage that situation while the ship is in port.
Yes, and in fact we want to be working with a group who is very professional at that and how that happens, and that's one of the things we're looking at very closely. The Port Authority will be working with a group on that to ensure that we can make that happen.
Development of Main Street, that was something that's something that we've been talking about for years, and it came up to the front again. With the landside development, and to have it expanded over into Main Street and have that developed along with some of our historic sites and so on, and the Tortola Pier partners were going to help us with that, with some of those developments.
They'd agree that they will help us to fund some of that.
That must have changed. How are we going to manage that
situation? We're going to have to do that ourselves now, and. Cromwell, all of the revenue is going to be ours now, so we can put a certain amount of our revenue towards that, and make that happen. So that's what we're going to be planning. I think it's going to begin this coming week or month, where we're putting together a city development team. You may recall Mr. Ivor Jackson, who would come and help us develop the plan. He's going to be here for the next 3 months helping us. working with our city manager, Jan Brathwaite, and we're going to be touching some of the local expertise on that team to begin to look at the boardwalk, the Main Street development, the things like Queen Elizabeth Park and how we connect all these places, and so on. So there is a team that we're putting together to begin the process of our city development that we hope we can come to the public with in a short time and get the public to buy into what we're going to be trying to do, or get their ideas as to what we're going to try to do. But we're going to be trying to follow the city development plan that was put together some years ago, and make some modifications as the public may recommend.
Okay. You're watching Spotlight. I'm here with the Honorable Mark Vanderpool, Minister of Communication and Works, and we're talking about the cruise ship park, the cruise ship development, the cruise ship pier development, along with the landside development. The numbers on the screen. Use the opportunity to call. We have another 10 minutes remaining, so don't wait till the last minute to call us. So if you've got a question, something you don't understand, something you need clarification on, something I forgot to ask, now is your opportunity to do it. If you don't want your voice heard, you can always text me. Traffic is going to be a problem. We're looking at what we're looking to do about the traffic in Rural Town.
It is going to be a problem.
Whether the cruise ships are in or not.
Yeah, so we, and the same team I'm telling you about, headed by Ms. Cyber Jackson, will be looking at a number of issues like that to be helping us to coordinate how we're going to make some adjustments to our roads or traffic or parking, a number of issues like that we are looking at. There's some ideas that we have that we put forward, some that the Public Works Department have been looking at. But we want to do it in a holistic manner, so we're trying to put together the plans to come to the public with and start doing certain things that we think can help with traffic. A very simple one I'll give you that I'm touting all the time, but I'm not getting a lot of attention. When you come from over Mayors and down by the burial ground there, Methodist Church burial ground, rather than all the traffic going to the courthouse and down to the roundabout, could we route the traffic down Main Street at that time, rather than coming up Main Street as a one-way, and get the traffic in the morning going that way, all the way down to the International Department Store, rather than going to the roundabout, going down along One Stop Mall, we'll fix that road a little better, and go down there and get down to the admin building and through town easily. The area that you can't turn right on to go down, you can establish a street light there to be able to regulate the traffic, to turn right and go down. So in the mornings, traffic can get the flow a lot better down through town, rather than go all the traffic going towards the roundabout. And in the afternoons, you can turn it the other way to go back up. And that's the kind of things we're thinking about.
Okay, cool. I got a text. The head tax with the Tortola Pier Parks was $15. Is that going to remain the same? Are we going to be able to charge our head tax? Can we raise our head tax that way?
The head tax, we expect it to remain at 15 with the agreements we are discussing. And in fact, Cromwell, that $15 is law, effective July 2014. It's already passed in the House of Assembly.
Okay.
It becomes in effect July 2014. With the negotiations we're going to be making, we want to be looking at it, obviously, whether it becomes into effect on that date or a different date, but it is going to be expected to be part of the agreement as we go forward.
And of course, the portion that would have gone to the developer will not be going to the bank.
To the Port Authority. And hopefully the Port Authority will pay the bank with it. So yes, that's how it's expected to happen, yeah. So we look forward to that. The cruise lines, to be honest with you, and I am for full disclosure when I can, the cruise lines would like a little more time before the $15 kick in, because they have already advertised their bookings 16 months out, but that's something we have in discussions with them on a regular basis.
Well, now, of course, now my question is, did they want that when Tortola Pier Park was in the position, or now that they're not, now they want to have that extension?
No, even before they were discussing it, I had to make a special trip to Miami to meet with Carnival along those lines, and Royal, and all of the cruise lines have been discussing whether we can delay that for a little longer or not, and that's something that we have to consider, but it's not something we've made a commitment about. I know it's in the law that July 2014 it becomes $15.
Okay. Thank you very much for calling Spotlight. Right ahead, please. You on Spotlight? Speak.
Yeah, good night, Honorable.
Good night, my friend.
Yeah, suggestion on the traffic. Yeah, Honorable Innovators.
I listen to you, my friend. Keep
Yeah,
talking.
a suggestion with the traffic, right? The high school traffic in the morning with the guys, the parents dropping off the kids and the buses.
Yes.
Between the courthouse going up to UP Cinema, you have the fence where the high school had the volleyball court, I think.
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking if you move that fence in a little more and you make parking where the bus, instead of dropping off the kids in the middle of the road, the bus can always pull in there and let off the kids, and that's the way probably the traffic will flow a little more in the morning there.
Yes, I believe it's a very good suggestion. I think there's some discussion on it. I don't know exactly what yet. There are one or two little issues, but I think they can be overcome. But it's a suggestion that's welcome, and I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, my brother.
Okay, Honorable.
Thank you.
Enjoy the show, man. Do your thing.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That's not a bad idea.
No, it's been bounced around. There are a couple of little issues. I can't remember exactly what they were in terms of them, but it is safer to pull in and let the kids off in there.
And it's a big space.
And it's a big space. So it's something that we have been considering. That entire space there with the high school, the House of Assembly, and that there is a study as to how it can be better organized.
Okay. And then of course that will be coming in the near future.
Yes.
Okay. Now, who's gonna do the building? Who's gonna build the land side development? What's going to be the role played by our local contractors? How much of that money is going to stay in the territory? Where are we going to buy the materials from? Are we going to make a facility with our local materials providers to import the material at a different cost? Whatever the structure needs to be, so that more of that money stays here and more of that money circulates and beneficial to the economy.
I'm going to be putting together a project team from what I have seen. The port is working on that. We are expecting to have a lot of local involvement in that project team. And what we are hoping will happen is that we can look at two phases. One phase is the Pier development, which has some crucial factors in it. One is dredging, and it's some very what we call deep sea dredging, down to 40 or 40-something feet of dredging. So we are going to expect to put those kinds of things out to bid. The piling, there's some I think it's 36-inch piles that have to be used there. And so we're going to put that out to a bid also through the project management team. There is some sheet piling to be able to hold the sand that's going to be dredged, where we're going to reclaim. So that's another part of the project. And then there's the actual pier to be built. So we're going to put all those out to bid in different formats, so that people can come forward and bid on them. And there's a lot of local expertise that can do a lot of this. In terms of the equipment and so on, I'm not sure, especially for the 36-inch piles, but I'm sure our local people who are involved in that type of business can contract with others who have the equipment to be able to do it. So we're going to try to involve as much of our locals as possible. The landside development they're two-story buildings that all locals can have all expertise to build. And so we're going to be looking at putting those out to bid for locals to be able to build them. So I believe there's be a lot of work to go around, and I hope that we can get our local folks geared up to get involved and get the work done, and get it done as quickly as possible when we get moving.
Yeah, because, our argument is that what we can do, we can buy.
Yes.
If there's expertise that we need, we can buy. The equipment that we need, we can rent or lease or buy.
Yeah.
I remember when we were getting ready to build a hospital, one of my arguments were on the radio was that James Stadman built your building. He built all
lot
them
of buildings, yeah.
all them buildings up there, and where CCT is, and so on. Actually, Rate buildings. Those are big buildings like the hospital. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why he couldn't build a hospital. Well, eventually he ended up finishing the hospital. They're pulling us out of the hole, and did a fantastic job with it. So you know, why can't we do that same thing?
Yeah,
with
I
the
know,
ports?
and we can do that with the ports, but it's not so simplistic as you said about hospital. I'm from a business level, and I try to understand that, because when you build a hospital for 60 or 75 million or 100 million, somebody will provide a bond, which is a very high cost to do it. In other words, a bond is required, and quite often it's not so much the government that makes these requirements. It's the lenders, whoever is lending you the money, want to make sure certain things are in place. So, you know, you want to be able to get it out there for your local people to get involved, but sometimes it's to a stage where the bonding and insurance and those kind of things are too heavy. And then to break it down in pieces, sometimes the lenders don't agree to that. They want one contractor to be responsible, so that if something goes wrong with the building, they can sue them and get the bank or the lender can get the money back. So sometimes it's not as simple. Now, this project that we are doing, we think we can simplify it to make sure that happens. We are ensuring that we're going to ensure, hopefully, that when we negotiate with the lender, that they don't put those kind of stipulations in there that will prevent us from having our locals to be involved in an organized way. So we are very confident we can get our locals involved. We need this project urgently to help to stimulate the economy, and we don't need it to give to outside people to stimulate the economy. You know, we need to give it to locals to stimulate the economy. So, and that's what we're doing. And even on the Total Pay Back group, we were stipulating that the work we done locally, and it was going to be very clear. They were aware of that. They had already started consulting with locals on the matter if they had to go that route. So we were very clear that we wanted to make this project positively affect the local economy, even in, as you said, in terms of materials from companies. And I hope that we can gear up to have the local suppliers meet with these, whoever's going to do the buildings, and negotiate prices and make agreements so that we can get the local economy stimulated, both from the worker level and from the supplier level, that we can get a lot of stimulation from this project. So we're anxious to get it moving.
What you're expecting from the people at BVI? What kind of support you need from us? We are frontline attorney at the clock. So, and whatever else I forgot to ask when you want to add, that's your opportunity.
Well, since we've done this, I've gotten a lot of positive support. People want to see this project done. In fact, you know, we in the way that we are going to do it, we hope that it can impact the community a lot stronger. And in fact, I hope that when we come and come up with a plan, whether we come up with a company, a group that we will form to invite people to invest in the project, that people won't be afraid to come forward and be able to be a part of it. And we are going to make that open invitation to people to do that in a not too distant future. So we are looking forward to that. And but we hope that before the year is out, we can get cracking. You know, these things have some delays sometimes, but we are putting it together as quickly as possible. We're going to put forward all the numbers and all the information and all the plans. From where we at, I'm freer to come to the public on a regular basis and inform us as to how we are going. And I will be doing that on a regular basis, whether it's every 2 weeks, every month. I'll be willing to come forward to the public and say, we've reached this far. We have this roadblock. We're trying to get it to deal with this way. And this is where we are going. And now is when we are planning to do the first set of piling. We plan to do the first set of dredging. I'm going to try to keep the public as informed as possible.
We can expect full transparency.
Very open.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carmel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Next week, the spotlight will be on leadership conference at the Eileen Parsons Auditorium. Also, we'll have gender affairs here to talk about building healthy relationships. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your words of encouragement, your suggestions and criticism. Continue to email me at jtvspotlight@yahoo.com. I'm Edjuenko, reminding you that when the spotlight is on, you see the facts. Peace and blessings.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.